You have been told that people act according to their nature, that their behavior is independent of your thoughts. But I tell you, this is not so. Every person who crosses your path is a mirror, reflecting the image you secretly hold of them in your mind. They act exactly as you assume. If you call someone unkind, life will send you proof of their cruelty. But if, in the silence of your imagination, you see them as noble, loving, and understanding, watch how they transform before your very eyes. This is no philosophy, it is a living law. You are the only thinker in your universe, and the world, obedient and faithful, echoes the tone of your inner conversations. When you change the assumptions you carry about another, you do not change them. You change yourself, and that new self demands a new reflection from all around you. Every act of another toward you is born from your own unseen assumptions. If you believe others disrespect you, they must. If you assume they adore you, they cannot help but show it. This truth is simple, yet the world sleeps to it. Tonight, as you listen, you will awaken to a secret that will forever change your relationships, your success, and your peace. You will learn that the power to transform others lies not in control or words, but in the quiet authority of imagination. Stay until the end, for when you grasp this truth, you'll never again see anyone the same way. My friend, the world you behold is not separate from you. It is the mirror of your own consciousness, forever reflecting the hidden assumptions you carry about life and about others. You may believe that people act on their own, that their behavior springs from their independent will. But I tell you, this is an illusion. Every face that greets you, every gesture, every word spoken to you, is an echo of what you have assumed to be true within yourself. The outer world, in all its seeming independence, bends itself to the shape of your invisible beliefs. You may say, but how can that be? I did not make them act this way. I did nothing at all. And yet, that very thought, I did nothing, is the silent architect of your experience. For you are never passive in this universe. Even in silence, even in inaction, you are assuming, you are imagining, you are inwardly declaring what is real about others, and they, being but shadows of your inner world, must conform to the image you sustain. Every man and woman in your life is your mirror. Look closely, and you will see that the pattern of your relationships reveals the pattern of your inner state. The one who irritates you reflects the irritation you secretly nurture. The one who loves you with gentleness mirrors the affection you have allowed yourself to feel. Nothing is accidental. Every encounter, every reaction is consciousness made visible. The world does not happen to you. It responds to you. If you would change the behavior of another, do not begin by trying to alter them. That is like scolding your reflection in the mirror for the expression on its face. Instead, turn inward. Ask yourself, what am I assuming about this person? What image of them do I carry in the depths of my mind? For it is there, in that secret chamber of imagination, that all actions are conceived. Suppose someone in your life seems cold, distant, unkind. You may plead with them, argue, explain, but nothing changes. Why? Because your inner assumption remains the same. You have accepted them as cold, and your world, faithful servant that it is, sustains that image. But imagine for a moment that you close your eyes and see them differently. Picture their face lit with warmth and understanding. Hear their voice filled with kindness. Feel the joy of harmony between you. Persist in this image, not as a wish, but as a living truth. And soon you will find that they cannot help but act in accordance with that vision. Do not think this is mere imagination in the sense of idle fantasy. The imagination is the creative power itself, the eternal cause of all manifestation. What you inwardly assume to be true of another is impressed upon the fabric of reality, and that impression must express itself in the world of form. The person you call a friend or enemy is but a mask worn by your own belief. Change the belief and the mask must change also. When you realize this, you begin to walk through life with a quiet authority. You no longer react to others as though they were powers outside of you. You know they are acting their parts in the play you are unconsciously writing. And when you choose to rewrite the script, to assume a higher vision of them, you free both yourself and them. Let me tell you, it is not arrogance to see others as better than they appear. It is love. When you hold someone in the light of your noble assumption, you lift them from the bondage of your lesser vision. You no longer condemn, you create. You no longer fight, you forgive through imagination. You see them as they could be, and in time as they must be. If the mirror shows you anger, do not strike the glass. Smile, and the reflection will smile. The world is that mirror, perfect in its obedience. Every assumption you make about people, every belief, every judgment, is silently shaping the roles they play in your life. There is no injustice in this, only reflection. You cannot assume limitation and witness freedom. You cannot assume rejection and experience love. The outer must obey the inner. And so, when someone fails to treat you as you desire, do not despair. Instead, bless them in your imagination. See them acting in harmony with your highest vision. Let your assumption of their goodness be unwavering, for the mirror cannot resist a sustained image. In time, you will marvel at how they seem transformed, though it was you who transformed the vision. You will come to see that there are no others, only reflections of your own consciousness, clothed in countless forms. Each person is yourself pushed out, playing the part your assumptions have written. When this truth becomes real to you, judgment dissolves and compassion takes its place. You no longer blame or resist. You understand that to change the world, you must first change the image you hold of it within. So when next you look upon another, whether stranger, friend, or foe, ask not what they are, but what you have assumed them to be. For as surely as day follows night, they will act exactly as you assume. And once you begin to grasp this sacred truth, you will understand that it was never about what they truly are. It has always been about what you have believed them to be. The world of people, with all its diversity and complexity, is not independent of your consciousness. You think you are perceiving them as they are, but in reality, you are only ever perceiving your assumptions about them. What you believe of another becomes the mold into which life must pour itself. Every man and woman is compelled to act in accordance with the image you sustain within. This is the mystery of assumption. It is not the world that dictates how you feel, it is your feeling that dictates how the world must behave. You cannot hold a thought of failure about another and expect to meet success in their presence, nor can you silently condemn a person and still experience their kindness. They are bound, by the invisible law of life, to reflect your inner conviction concerning them. So many live in frustration because they try to change people while holding within themselves the same assumption that created the problem. They say, "He will never change," and then complain that he remains the same. They expect kindness while assuming indifference. They long for loyalty while imagining betrayal. Do you see the contradiction? You cannot reap what you do not sow in consciousness. Every assumption is a seed, and every encounter is its harvest. If you could but watch your thoughts toward others, you would discover the cause of every reaction you receive. The tone of your inner feeling towards someone is the prophecy of your future with them. When you silently assume that another is ungrateful, unkind, or unworthy, you have sent out the command that they must appear so in your world. You may think your assumption is private, hidden within your mind, but consciousness has no secrecy. The world is consciousness made visible. Your invisible thought will always find its way into visibility, clothed in the actions and attitudes of those around you. Imagine now that you could deliberately choose your assumptions. Suppose you begin to see everyone as noble, intelligent, generous, and loving. You may say, "But they are not that way." My friend, it does not matter. The outer appearance is but the shadow of an old belief. Change the belief, and the shadow must change. If you persist in assuming the best of another, no matter how much the senses deny it, you will summon forth that quality from them. You are not trying to change their nature. You are awakening what has always been within them, for all that you assume of another exists within you. Think of the sculptor who sees the angel in the marble and chips away the stone until it is revealed. The marble does not resist, it yields to the vision of the artist. Likewise, people yield to the image you hold of them. They cannot resist the magnetic pull of your assumption, for the world is not outside of you, it is within. The moment you assume a new image of another, you begin to sculpt the reality of your relationship. When you look at a person and think he is selfish, you are not seeing truth, you are seeing the reflection of your belief. And that belief, held with feeling, becomes the atmosphere through which that person must move. They cannot act differently until you see differently. You think you are observing them, but you are actually creating them. To assume the good, even in the face of apparent evil, is the highest act of love, for it frees both of you from the prison of appearances. Try this experiment. Take one person who has caused you distress. For a few moments each day, close your eyes and imagine them as they would be if they were everything you wish them to be: kind, generous, understanding. Hear their voice speaking words of harmony. Feel their presence as peaceful and loving. Do not do this to manipulate them, but to align your consciousness with the truth that love is the reality beneath all illusion. If you persist, without effort, they will begin to act according to your new assumption, for they are not separate from the field of your consciousness. This is the law that governs all relationships. What you believe of another, you invite from them. What you assume they are, they cannot help but express. The power is never in the outer act, but in the inner vision that precedes it. When you learn to discipline your assumption, to hold firmly to the image of good, the world becomes your friend. You no longer live as a victim of behavior. You become the author of experience. Every argument, every disappointment, every misunderstanding stems from an unexamined assumption. But once you awaken to this, you begin to move with compassion. You realize that no one is truly against you. They are only acting from the picture you have painted of them in the secret place of your mind. You cease to condemn, for you understand the cause. You no longer plead for love, you assume it. You no longer demand respect, you believe it, and soon the world begins to act accordingly. The greatest gift you can give another is a higher assumption of them. To see them as divine, even when they forget their divinity, is the purest form of creation. For what you assume of them in love, they will one day become. And once this understanding takes root within you, you will discover that your true communication with others is not through words, not through gestures or actions, but through the silent realm of imagination. The most powerful conversations you ever have are the ones no one hears, for they are spoken in the language of assumption. These are the invisible conversations, those quiet dialogues in the mind where you decide who another is, what they think, and how they feel toward you. Every one of those silent exchanges is a seed planted in the soil of consciousness, and in time it blossoms in the outer world as living experience. You may believe your thoughts are private, that what you think about another remains locked within you, but consciousness knows no boundaries. Thought is creative. Feeling gives it life. The moment you imagine someone saying or doing a thing, You have sent forth an invisible message, and life, being a faithful messenger, must deliver it. You are always in communication with the world around you, not with words, but with vibration, with the tone of belief that flows from your heart. Many wonder why certain people treat them in ways they never desired, why relationships repeat the same patterns despite effort and sincerity. It is because they have never changed their inner conversation. They may speak kindly aloud, but inwardly they hold endless arguments, doubts, and criticisms. And those unspoken words, charged with emotion, are heard and obeyed by the unseen law of being. For every inner word is creative, every mental image is prophetic. What you continually whisper within yourself becomes the drama that unfolds before your eyes. If you could hear your own thoughts as the world hears them, you would understand how faithfully life reflects you. You may outwardly smile at someone, yet inwardly condemn them, and sooner or later they will feel that condemnation and return it in kind. You may hope for understanding, but imagine rejection, and the rejection must come. You may desire affection, yet believe in indifference, and indifference is all you will know. The inner voice is the author of your reality. Try this before meeting someone who has been difficult or cold toward you. Withdraw for a few moments and hold a new conversation with them in your imagination. Hear them speaking words of warmth and respect. Feel the harmony between you as though it were already real. Do not plead or beg in thought. Simply assume that the understanding already exists. Let your inner dialogue flow from that state. When you next meet them, you will be astonished at the change, for your inner words have already rewritten the script of your outer experience. The world is not moved by what you say. It is moved by what you mean when you say it. It is not the surface of speech that creates. It is the feeling behind it. Every inner conversation carries a tone, and that tone is the vibration that attracts its equal. When you think of another in fear, you send fear. When you think of them in love, you send love. And each will find its way back to you multiplied. The world is but the echo chamber of your inner speech, so begin to listen to yourself. What are you saying about others in the secret place of the mind? Do you imagine them as generous, or do you silently accuse them of selfishness? Do you think of them as understanding, or do you rehearse their faults again and again? Every time you replay an unpleasant memory, you are renewing the pattern and giving it new life. But when you revise it, when you see it differently, hear it differently, feel it differently, you dissolve the old and create the new. The past is not fixed. It is living substance, waiting for your new assumption. There are no idle thoughts. Even in moments of silence, you are communicating with the world. Every image you hold of another, every unspoken feeling, becomes a living vibration that shapes your tomorrow. This is why it is said that you must forgive. To forgive is to stop rehearsing the old story. It is to cease the inner conversation that keeps the wound alive. The moment you replace bitterness with blessing, the moment you imagine peace instead of pain, the outer world begins to heal. You may think this too simple, but simplicity is the mark of truth. The law of life is unadorned. As you assume within, so shall it be without. If your inner speech is loving, your world must echo love. If your inner speech is fearful, the world will mirror fear. You can tell the state of your inner conversation by the condition of your relationships. Every word you think about another is a thread in the fabric of your destiny. So let your inner conversations be worthy of the world you desire. Speak within yourself words that heal, that uplift, that create harmony. Imagine the best of all and persist until it feels natural. The unseen listener, life itself, will take those words and give them form. Then, what once seemed impossible will appear before you as the natural outcome of your invisible conversations. And when you come to see how these invisible conversations shape your world, you will also begin to realize the futility of trying to change others outwardly. You cannot argue, persuade, or demand your way into transformation. The change you seek in another does not begin with them. It begins in you. Every attempt to force the world to behave differently while clinging to the same inner assumptions is like polishing the reflection in a mirror while ignoring the face that casts it. The mirror will never change until the image does. You have been given a power so subtle, so profound, that you may have overlooked it entirely. It is the power to alter the unseen picture you hold of another. When you shift that image, their behavior must shift to correspond, for no one can escape the atmosphere of your consciousness. They breathe it as you breathe air. It surrounds them, penetrates them, and draws from them the exact response your inner state demands. Do not look upon another as a separate being who must be convinced or corrected. Look upon them as a living symbol of your assumption. If they act harshly, it is because you have assumed harshness. If they are indifferent, it is because you have accepted indifference as possible. You can end the pattern the very moment you change your inner conviction. Withdraw from the argument, step back from the appearance, and quietly declare within yourself, I now see this one as kind, as generous, as wise. Do not strain, do not plead. Simply rest in that new awareness. Soon the outer will echo the inner. The world responds not to effort but to being. You need not manipulate anyone when you have mastered the art of assuming the desired state. The one who knows how to feel from the end, who can inwardly rest in the conviction that all is already well, need not move a finger. Life moves for them. People rise to meet their expectation. Events rearrange themselves to fit their vision, and what once seemed stubborn or impossible melts into harmony. It may seem that others have their own will, that they act independently of your belief, but remember, you are not dealing with their surface mind. You are dealing with the deeper law of consciousness. When you assume something of another, that assumption sinks below the level of thought and touches the core of their being, calling forth from them the behavior that matches your belief. You may not see the connection with your eyes, but life, in its infinite wisdom, connects every unseen cause with its visible effect. If you desire love, assume that love already surrounds you through them. If you long for respect, assume that they already hold you in esteem. You do not beg reality to change, you become the change. You carry yourself as though the transformation has occurred, and by this inner poise you compel it to appear. You have no need to speak a word. The silent knowing in your heart is enough. Think of a tuning fork. Strike one note, and another of the same pitch will begin to vibrate in sympathy. So it is with consciousness. When you hold a new image of another, you set up a vibration in yourself, and the world, being one with you, must respond. The one who once opposed you will begin to reflect a gentler tone, not because they have suddenly changed, but because you have changed the note you are sending. This is why resentment and criticism are so destructive. They fix the very condition you wish to escape. The more you dwell on what you dislike, the more power you give it. But when you lift your thought to a higher vision, when you insist upon seeing the divine where others see the flawed, you redeem not only them but yourself, for you cannot see goodness in another without awakening it within your own being. When you stand in the quiet conviction that all is well, that everyone around you is unfolding perfectly in their own way, life begins to flow with a grace you never imagined. Conflicts dissolve, misunderstandings fade, and even the most difficult souls begin to reflect the peace you have found within. You realize then that there was never any need to fight, to convince, or to defend. The only battle was within the imagination, and once you have won it there, the world becomes your ally. So let every desire for change become an inward journey. Do not wait for apologies, do not demand proof. Begin by seeing them as already transformed, already kind, already aligned with your highest vision. Make that assumption your dwelling place, and the outer world will have no choice but to conform. You will find in time that the people you once sought to change will appear to have changed themselves. But in truth, it was your seeing that changed, and they, being mirrors of your consciousness, had to reflect the new image. To change another, you need only to see them differently. The rest is done for you in ways you could never plan. For consciousness is the unseen artist that paints the living canvas of your experience. And when you change the color of your thought, the entire landscape of your life is made new. And as this revelation deepens within you, you come to understand the sacred patience of creation. Life does not bring you evidence first, it waits for your assumption, it waits for your conviction. The outer world forever lags behind the inner one, for what you behold in time was born long ago in imagination. You may look around and say, but nothing has changed, I still see the same faces, the same behavior, the same limitation. Yet that statement only reveals where your faith rests. You are still waiting to see before believing, but the law of life demands that you believe first, and then you shall see. The mind that insists on proof before assumption is bound to live in repetition. It walks in circles, tracing the same pattern of doubt and disappointment. The one who knows this law reverses the order entirely. They assume the best when there is no sign of it. They give thanks for harmony while discord still echoes around them. They hold the vision steady when the senses scream the opposite. And because they persist in belief, the unseen begins to crystallize into form. The world rearranges itself to mirror the conviction that stands firm within. Do not wait for another to change before assuming them changed. Do not wait for love to appear before assuming you are loved. Do not wait for kindness before assuming you are surrounded by it. The delay in your life is not time, it is doubt. Every moment you postpone assumption, you postpone the miracle that could already be yours. Life will always echo the tone you sustain. When you choose to live in the end, to feel now what you long to experience later, you release the creative power that shapes all reality. When you look at the barren tree in winter and say, "It shall bloom again," you are not lying, you are declaring the unseen truth that lies beneath the surface. You are aligning with the eternal cycle of life that moves from within to without. In the same way, when you assume beauty in the midst of chaos, you are not denying the visible. You are affirming the invisible cause that will soon bring order. Faith is not blindness. It is vision that sees beyond appearances. You may say, but how can I assume when everything around me denies it? I tell you, that is precisely when assumption holds its greatest power. It is easy to believe when the world agrees with you, but to persist when all appearances oppose you, this is mastery. Every contradiction is a test of faith, a divine invitation asking, will you remain loyal to your inner conviction, or will you surrender to appearances? Each time you choose the unseen over the seen, the eternal over the temporary, you strengthen the creative spirit within you. The outer world is but a photograph of your former states of consciousness. What you are seeing now is not who you are, but who you were. The present moment is the seed of tomorrow's harvest. So judge not by appearances. Do not react to the shadow. Change the light. Assume now what you wish to experience later, and hold it with a quiet confidence, knowing that life cannot betray the one who trusts its law. There will come moments when everything seems still, when nothing appears to move, and you may be tempted to give up your assumption. But remember, the seed buried in the earth shows no sign of growth until the moment it breaks through the soil. So it is with your inner work. Beneath the surface of what you call delay, 1,000 forces are moving, arranging, and preparing the manifestation of your assumption. The silence is not absence, it is gestation. The unseen is ripening into visibility. Do not chase evidence. The need for proof is the confession of disbelief. Live as though your assumption were already fact. Think from it, speak from it, act from it. The one who lives in the end no longer hopes. They know. They no longer wait. They rest. Their imagination becomes their reality, and soon the world confirms what they have known all along. You will discover, as you persist in this practice, that the rhythm of life begins to change. People who once resisted you will soften. Circumstances that seemed fixed will bend. Paths will open where walls once stood. And when the evidence finally appears, you will smile, for you will recognize it as the echo of what you had already accepted as true. The world did not lead, you did, so hold fast to your vision. Assume the highest good of all, and persist in that assumption with unwavering faith. Let every moment be a declaration of the reality you wish to see. Refuse to be moved by delay or contradiction, for they are but shadows that dissolve in the light of sustained belief. Live now in the state of fulfillment, and let the world follow, for it must. And when you live in this quiet confidence, something wondrous begins to happen. The line between imagination and reality fades, and you find yourself dwelling in a new state of being, a state where your assumption feels more real than the evidence of your senses. This is the sacred art of living in the end. It is not daydreaming or idle wishing. It is the conscious acceptance that what you have imagined is already accomplished. You rest in the awareness of fulfillment, and because consciousness is the only reality, the world must conform to your inner state. To live in the end means to occupy the feeling of the wish, fulfilled so completely that the outer world becomes powerless to contradict it. You no longer react to appearances, for you know they are but the lingering shadow of a former belief. You have stepped out of the waiting room of hope and into the certainty of creation. You are not waiting for your assumption to become true. You are living as though it already is, and life, ever faithful, must echo that conviction. When you close your eyes and imagine yourself as you desire to be, feel the reality of that state. Do not merely see it, feel it. Feel the joy of it, the freedom of it, the peace that comes from knowing it is done. Let that feeling fill every corner of your being until it becomes natural, effortless, inevitable. When the feeling becomes real, you are no longer seeking, you are possessing. You have entered the kingdom within, and the outer world will soon bear witness to your inner knowing. To live in the end is to move beyond time. You no longer concern yourself with when or how the manifestation will come. The question of time belongs only to those who doubt. When you live in the end, you know that the assumption has already been accepted by the creative power of life, and that acceptance guarantees expression. You do not watch the clock. You watch your state of consciousness, for there lies the seed of every future event. Imagine for a moment a great actor preparing for a role. Before the curtain rises, they become the character entirely. They feel the emotions, walk the gestures, and think the thoughts of the one they portray. When the play begins, they are no longer pretending. They are the role. So too must you become the actor of your own destiny. Assume the role of the fulfilled one, the loved one, the successful one, and wear that identity inwardly until it feels natural. Then the stage of life will mirror your performance with perfect fidelity. You will discover that people, events, and circumstances begin to arrange themselves with effortless precision. What once seemed impossible becomes ordinary, not because you forced it, but because you lived as though it had already happened. You were not waiting for the world to change. You changed the assumption from which the world took its cue. Every scene in life shifts the moment you change the state from which you perceive it. Do not confuse living in the end with denial. You are not pretending that the old does not exist. You are acknowledging that a higher reality now occupies your consciousness. The old conditions are fading photographs. They no longer hold power unless you reanimate them with attention. Withdraw your focus from what was and rest your attention on what is now true in imagination. The outer world will soon forget the old picture and take on the likeness of your new state. There will be moments when doubt whispers, when the senses tempt you to look back, to question, to measure progress. Resist the urge. Every time you check for results, you step out of the state of fulfillment and back into the state of wanting. Stay in the feeling that it is already done. Let the unseen forces move as they must, for they are wiser than your conscious planning. The path will unfold naturally, guided by the harmony of your assumption. The beauty of this law is that it asks nothing of the world, only of you. You need not convince, plead, or strive. You need only to assume and persist. When you live in the end, you move through life with a serene authority, knowing that every encounter, every conversation, every event is but an outpicturing of your inner state. You walk among others, yet your world has changed, for you are no longer reacting. You are creating. And when the outer manifestation finally appears, it will not feel miraculous. It will feel natural. You will not be astonished, for you have already lived it in imagination. The world simply caught up with your conviction. You will realize then that every fulfilled desire, every transformation, was never the result of struggle, but of surrender. The surrender to the reality of your assumption. To live in the end is to live in truth. It is to walk each day as though you already stand in possession of all that you desire. It is to carry within you the peace of completion, the quiet joy of knowing that creation is finished and you are merely witnessing its unfolding. When you dwell in that state, life becomes effortless, harmonious, and radiant. For you have discovered that the outer world is not your master, but your reflection, and that reflection must always act exactly as you assume.